Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. We have an action-packed episode this week. Hear about how Meristem products can enhance your seed investment in convenient, unique ways. All available from your local Merschman Seeds dealer for 2024-2025.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Ben and Lynn and a special guest. I'll let Ben introduce him.
Yeah, so today we have Peter Rusinellis from Meristem Crop Performance, right?
Yes, sir.
And today we're going to talk about something that's really big, something that a partnership that I don't know that we've ever quite done anything quite like this before underneath the Merschman brand, but we're going to talk about a couple of the Meristem Crop Performance products that the Merschman Seed Dealers have the opportunity to sell if they want to.
And keep in mind that this is something we're adding on to our base package, which is very strong, but there's some other things that we wish we could add on, but we can't. We physically can't get it on the seed.
From a seed treatment
perspective. From a seed treatment perspective, yes. And because either it won't live or you physically can't do it. So this is a way to enhance our seed to make it even better.
Yep, with the Merschman motto or the Merschman goal of always doing farmer first things, we believe that this is a definite yield enhancement style of product offering that Meristem Crop Performance offers, and we're going to kind of get into that. But first I kind of wanted to talk about how we got hooked up with Meristem. From our Power Core Enlist corn portfolio, we don't have the ability to access below ground traits, and there's some politics that are involved in that because of the RNAi technology from Bayer that is in the Vorseed style of stuff. You know, we're kind of left with a gap in the industry, and one of our key account reps from Corteva is like, hey, you need to check these guys out from Meristem Crop Performance. They have a product that may help you with some corn rootworm protection in the ground. So we brought them in, and it's probably been over the course of what, Lynn? 2 years we've been having conversations.
About a couple of years. And
we're really excited to, this will probably be the first true public announcement to all of our customers out there. All of our dealers know on what we got going on here. But yeah, this is something that's really exciting, and one of the first things we wanted to talk about was one of the product offerings. So,
and yeah, Meristem's got an extremely deep portfolio of products, not only planter box treatments, but many, many other things. So I think today we're just going to scratch the surface, right?
That's exactly correct. But before we do all that, Peter, why don't you give an introduction on what your background is, what your role is with the company, and then we can dive into some of the fun stuff.
Sure, but be glad to. So thanks again for having me here on this Cup of Joe podcast. Really appreciate it. So I'm Peter Rusinellis, Meristem Crop Performance. I oversee our business development opportunities. So looking at working with organizations like Merschman Seed and expanding our footprint and the ability to align ourselves with good companies. That's a primary role that I have. My background is I grew up in farming. So I grew up on a vegetable and grain farm. So kind of unique, Northeast Illinois. Because corn and soybeans were part of our portfolio, but really vegetables were a big part of our portfolio. So I always joke around, Joe, and say that I grew up in the college of hard work. That's what I grew up in. But that's been probably one of the biggest successes for me. And then did go away to school after during the farm and spent some time in college and came back and stayed in the ag industry. We actually got out because of some development that was going on in that area. That market was growing rapidly, so that made me have to decide what I wanted to do after the ripe age of about 26, and I decided to pursue a career in agriculture in this side where we service the producer. And so I spent time in ag retail. I spent some time selling seed. For about 15 years of my career was in the ag retail and around full service, some wholesale, but really where I tried to differentiate was how can we bring value to the farmer in a way that traditional retail isn't. And at that time, in mid 2000s, it was everybody was selling NPK, everybody was selling a seed brand, if you will, and we were selling seed, but I was thinking I started to enjoy more about how to ensure that we maximize yield potential, and found that when we do the right things at the right time, no matter the hybrid, no matter what seed brand we're talking about at that time, that we could positively influence the outcome. And I got really excited about that, and that's where my passions fell in. So from there, I worked with a company that focused only on the plant I call this the crop additive space, the plant nutrition space. Now we kind of phrase it as also the stress mitigation space. And as of recently as 2021, I joined Meristem as a partner. So I'm a partner within the company. And at that time, from 21 till about 6 months ago, I did everything you could think of under the sun, if you can imagine, in a startup company that started in 19. That sales to product development to helping with logistics, you name it, have had to be done. Joe, if you had to take out the trash, that was my job too. So it was just anything we had to do. So, but as of recent, like I said, more focused, more aligned with business development. But we find joy, or I find joy, anytime we can really be interacting like with customers or even at the farm gate. That's still probably where my passion lies.
It's a great introduction.
That's right.
So from there, we are going to talk about the hopper throttle portfolio that you guys have, and I kind of want to just we're going to bring up a pail here and kind of show what the hopper throttle is, what it looks like, and why we have the individual components that we do. So we have our hopper throttle pail. Why don't you explain what it is, why we have these goofy looking buttons on top, and what we got on the inside of the pail as well.
You know, it's kind of funny, that you set this up on the table because, the best way we always kind of joke around and say, the best way to talk about this product with a farmer sometimes is not to talk about it at all. Just set it right up on the table like this and start having a conversation like we're having. And what you know, within a few minutes, there's what's the strange looking thing on the table that looks like a battery? The battery has been the most common thing. It looks like a battery because these are the posts, right?
Interstate battery is probably going to want a little cut.
Going to want a little cut from it. Well, the other comment we use, is talking about who's going to want to cut. We talk about the fact that when we deploy these, you pull a grenade clip. Now, I don't know if anybody, we kind of came up with the grenade clip. I'm not sure if we owe anybody for that or not, but there's been some fun talking about this product. But to give a little backstory. This product was created because when what we look at Meristem and we think about the value that we're trying to bring to the market, and I think the reason we originally got aligned, as you said, technology that's coming out in the biological space that can not only influence biofertility, but now we're starting to be able to influence certain pest controls and even disease controls. And so that's going to take a whole nother path and continue to really grow this segment. But biology in itself, or biologicals in itself, if I'm a farmer, there's a lot of white noise around biologicals. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're hearing all about biologicals. You don't know what does what and who does what, and everybody's calling you and everybody's on your front door wanting you to use biological. When I think about biologicals, it's like saying herbicide, or it's like saying seed. If I said seed and everything was seed, Ben, Joe, Lynn, how many categories fall under seed?
Lots of them.
Lots of them. Small grains, corn, soybeans. Lots. But seed, if all it was categorized was seed, there would be a lot of subcategories. Biologicals are the same. We think about herbicide, there's a lot of subcategories. So when Meristem developed this system, it was to find a way to best deliver the technology to the seed in a way that it was viable for the farmer. So not only did we want to deliver the right biological technology and take that, I call it guessing game, off the table. What does what are we trying to influence? Once we determined that and who we wanted to work with on the technology side, then we went to work to go to license those technologies in some cases to make sure that we could have access to them. And really, the number one thing that Meristem is really a delivery company. We're finding a way to best deliver these technologies to the farm gate, and that's what this represents.
Peter, the key word you just said is viable. And we looked at a ton of different biological companies, different products and everything, and we're totally convinced biologicals have value, very much have value. But the one thing that we were drilled into and taught is it's got to be alive. It's got to be alive. And so the delivery system that you have invented is the game changer, in my opinion, because the way your system works is you are getting viable material, because not everything plays together well. I mean, not everything, you can mix two things together and it could destroy your biological product instantly. So putting it on the seed, we firmly believe, and there's a lot of claims out there, we just think it won't work because you don't have the control of the environment, and it could be too hot. And all of a sudden when you go to the field, you don't know if you're going to go to the field in April if you're going to go to the field in June. And will it be alive? And I don't know about you, but I hate spending money that I'm not going to get the value of the product that I bought. So that's the key word you just said, viable. And this is what makes your product so unique. And that's why we were so excited about it, because we knew that when the farmer was going to spend a dollar, he was going to get a dollar because it was 100% alive.
That's right. Yeah, the thing here is, like you said, biologicals, they perform a function. We know they work. And to your point, there's other technologies in the market that I'd say in a siloed environment where there's not those conditions you talked about, too hot, too cold, maybe blended with a fungicide, maybe put in with a starter fertilizer, whatever the case is, that those elements are hard on them and typically reduce CFU count dramatically, or even in some cases to nothing. And so the best time to deliver these technologies at the highest CFU count is at plant when the farmer goes to use them. And I think commercially too, as you start to look at these technologies we can deliver on corn, soybeans, wheat, all these other products. We're in cotton in markets. The closer we get to the planter, the more effective the products are, and it's actually better for the seed because we're not messing with the seed. We're not trying to tumble it through a treater somewhere that somebody maybe isn't set up properly to do so. Whatever the case may be, this gives the opportunity to the farmer to supply a product that can give them value right at the planter, and we've done it in a way that's easy to use, as we mentioned with these caps. And I can, if you want me to talk about these or pull them out here.
And again, you're not making it an extra step; you're making it part of the process because you've got talc and graphite already in there.
That's right.
So you can explain how that all combines and works.
And no equipment expense. We think about the value of going in furrow on a lot of crops if we could do it, but then the thing that keeps us from doing it in a lot of cases, I think I heard a number today around maybe 30% of crops are set up for in furrow. I'd argue that that's probably much less on a lot of other crops like soybeans as an example, and other small grains. But equipment expense, we got equipment now that's costing $500,000-$600,000 just for the planter. Just even if you did have equipment for in furrow capabilities, it's hard on the planter, right? It's all the things that all the reasons that growers don't do it, and I think the number one reason is speed, right? How much time is this going to take me? How many more people do I got to employ during the spring to get this done? And so this is an answer to all those. I call it a solution to all those problems with also being able to take advantage of the yield potential out there. So with this, the way this is set up. Because this particular pail here is our Revline hyperthyroid corn with ether, and this is just a traditional pail that you show here. Nothing real fancy about the pail, except for when you do get done with it, it can make a nice. You could haul some tools in it up to the top of the grain bin, something like that. But we just ask you to clean it out or rinse it out before you drink anything out of it. But but in general, it can make a nice tool around the farm. But really, the magic is the lid, and we have a utility patent on this, so it is a true delivery mechanism.
So in the base of the pail is your talc and graphite.
That's correct.
That average farmer, almost every farmer uses as a lubricant for their planter.
That's right.
So that's laying in the bottom.
Yes, sir. And that is, you bring up a great point there. A farmer would typically use that. It is built to specs. So we use John Deere specs, and we use precision specs. So we make sure that we have the adequate amount of fluency agent, and we work well across all color planters. So we try to be agnostic to brand. We all might have our favorites, but we want to work with all of them, and we work with center fill and individual box planters. So the magic. Go ahead.
To build on that, though, we also have zinc in the pail and manganese in the pail. Correct?
That's right. We have zinc, iron, and manganese. So in the base is talc graphite, zinc, iron, and manganese. The zinc that's in there is 1.35 pounds in the corn pail, and it's 0.43 pounds in the soybean pail. And the reason that means something is because we've worked with independent partners that have been able to prove that the zinc load that's in the base of the pail that you'll be offering is equivalent to, now not the same as, equivalent to in efficiency to the plant. We're getting 1.2 quarts of 9% EDTA chelated zinc equivalency. So as a value to somebody who doesn't have in furrow, we know zinc is very valuable on seed in furrow. We know it's an auxin producer, it helps with germination, and it also helps influence early phosphorus uptake. So with those being the case, we wanted a real amount of zinc, not just to be able to say it was in there. We want to be able to deliver a real amount of zinc that we knew we can influence yield. And it also, everything in the base of that pail, and I think this is critical because it separates us from other products in the market, everything in the base of the pail is the same grind as the talc graphite. So number one thing is it all works well as a fluency agent. The zinc has a waxy coating to it. It's actually, we call it ion lock zinc. There's a provisional patent in place for it because not only does it work as a great agronomic source of zinc, it actually helps adhere everything else that's being delivered to the seed on the seed. So it actually helps with coverage and it helps as a fluency agent.
So it's not your run-of-the-mill zinc.
It's not.
Much enhanced.
That's correct. You know, we see zinc in other planter box products. The thing that I've been, in my experience in the past, that zinc isn't the same grind, it actually settled to the bottom. And we get some fluency agent issues where this actually adheres to that seed and evenly distributes throughout the seed. So with that, in the lid, in this particular case, we're talking about the Revline Hopper Throttle Corn with Ether product. And the way this thing works mechanically, you've got one deployed here because you said one of your kids came along and already hit it, right? So
always making their mark on the world.
We'll turn it upside down to show what that looks like. Basically, you'll see these black cutters. When you do pull this clip and deploy that at when you go to use the product, that'll look like this one over here. And what will happen is the black cutters will come out of that capsule. There'll be a seal here normally when it's a loaded product. There'll be a seal that's attached to this, and we cut all three sides. There's these, I call them Dracula teeth, that come out there first. So you'll kind of, when you do depress it, you'll kind of feel two things. You kind of feel that first press where these Dracula teeth, if you will, deploy through, and then that second push through will cut the balance of the three. In case you're wondering what happens to the foil, because that is a pretty critical component of being successful, is we do have a flat spot here, maybe hard to see, but we do have a flat spot here on the that it doesn't cut. There's a segment there that's missing, and that hangs on to this capsule and doesn't fall into the pail. So therefore, everything in this capsule then deploys successfully, falls out into that base, and then you do that all three times in this case. Shake it up real good, and add it to the planter. The corn version will treat 50 units, and the soybean version will treat basically 40 to 45. So they're set up to treat pro boxes. If you do have bags, individual bags, there is a scoop, and one scoop is 1 unit. That's how the system, how it will work. And so, a lot of people, I get a question, so we'll address now coverage. How does the coverage work? How does it cover? Sounds great, you guys cover it, you dump it in there, then what? Or do I need to do something different? Should I get a talc graphite treat, or should I treat it before? We tell everybody, treat it how you normally would do your talc graphite. In other words, when you do, the only thing different from your talc graphite is a lot of guys sometimes will just take that and throw a few scoops in, right? In this case, we do have it pre-measured. So this will treat a box of corn, for example. So if you dump that box of corn in the center fill in this case, a lot of guys will add it as they're adding the corn. That's one way to get it incorporated. When we test it dumped straight on top of the seed, and then they took it through the field. We had Ag Ingenuity partners test the product for us. They're affiliated with Advanced Agrolytics, and we test with them every year. And most recently we had a test where they did 20%, 50%, and 80% through the field. And when I say through the field, I don't mean one pass. I mean they plant an entire field, and they test that at those stages. And then they pull the seed tubes. They check for the presence of microbes and what we claim is in there. And they check the CFU count. And we've been able to prove that we're getting adequate coverage across all seeds at or above industry specs through this. So we know we can cover. And so that's been critical. That's been part of educating around this. Is probably one of the biggest things we've had to really talk through is coverage. Get people to understand that we will cover as well as any other treatment that you could use, any other treatment method that's used.
And you did that in the most redneck way possible, the laziest way possible, dumping the pail right on top of your right inside your center fill. You just dumped it right on top.
That's right. Just dumped it right on top.
So the key is to get it in the furrow, as opposed to when you think of some seed trimmings, you got to get it evenly on every seed. So it's a little different concept that you're trying to deliver it into the furrow. We're
trying to deliver in the furrow, but we do adhere to the seeds. When we pulled those, seeds. They're actually taking the individual seeds and washing those and then growing those in cultures. and we want to identify how much is actually on per seed, because I consider a precision application. We think about farming today, right? We're getting much more precise with our nutrient placement. We're getting much more, we're planting higher populations of corn, which means our root systems are smaller. And so we've got to get more precise with where we're placing our nutrients. I think we're doing that in our traditional fertility applications. I know we personally on our farm, we still have some acres. We've moved more to a root zone banding in our fertilizer. We're wanting to place that right where the roots are. I have a good friend of mine that always says the Indians had it figured out. They cut the head off of fish and placed the fish head underneath the corn and planted the corn. It's really not a lot different than what we're trying to go back to now. That still works. We're to place that food source right near that plant where it can access it. So we're wanting to place these materials, no different than why we do seed treatment. Seed treatment is a more precise application where you're getting it right on seed, so you're getting that into that plant immediately, and that's what we're doing here.
Right. So we may not suggest, you can go the lazy route if you want to go the lazy route, but apply it. I think the key you already said was apply it like you would normally apply your graphite talc to whatever planter system you're working with now.
That's right. Yeah, it's no need to invest in special equipment. That's part of the strategy here is, of course, when you're spending more money than talc, so everybody always takes a little more care.
Right.
Everybody usually takes that extra minute to make sure it's, just makes them feel better, right? That it's stirred in a little bit, or if you have a talc graphite treater, great, use it. If you don't, not something you need to run out and go buy.
Right.
Yeah, we used it on ours in the conversation that we had with using it through the applicator on the seed tender, and it is definitely one of those where it is a very handy process, and it works so good. You do have to make sure that before there's always a little bit of a margin of error. You got to move it back and forth, but for folks like that, it is a very good product that flows very well. So you have to be right on the use rate, because selfishly, we would love for you to go a little bit more, so that way you buy more. But that's always the thing with when we first had this conversation as well. Why this was so intriguing too, because this was almost like the last space into the seed process that was not being utilized in a method that was adding value. We're using talc or graphite, as a mechanism to help deliver the seed, but that was its only process. It was to make our life easier, and now we're making that a value-added pass, and that once again, that's what makes us super intriguing and fits really well with our business model. And the really, really cool part that I liked about this is what we've just talked about, is it's super convenient and easy for farmers to use. It is not taking up any more time to do a process, and you're getting a really great ROI from the preliminary results that we've got from our testing. We're seeing that for sure.
So what does each button have underneath it? What product, and what are the benefits of those products?
Yeah, so this is a kind of a demo lid. So they've got some different size capsules. So that may not translate exactly to what we're going to talk about. The reason we have a larger capsule for our demo pails is just kind of shows these are the two sizes, and that's why people wonder, why is the pail so big? It's because we have to have the head space for a capsule this size, to deploy this, right, and let it fall, and then have the opportunity to still shake it up. And have it, make sure we don't get anything hung up in a capsule. So there's been some improvements since the very, very first one. That's one of the things we learned. So that's why you see two different sizes. This one is larger because on our soybean version, we actually provide inoculant. And inoculant requires more. So that's why this larger one. But for this conversation on Revline Hopper Throttle Corn, we have three capsules. So one capsule, we have a product called Meristem. We actually license that from New Leaf. That Meristem is a pink methyl-trope. So it's actually pink in color. When you deploy that and it lands on top of the talc graphite in that pail, it's pink. So you do definitely see it. It is in simplest terms, it's a biostimulant. It utilizes methane that's exuded from the plant. So it takes something that's a byproduct of the photosynthetic process of the plant, because what it does is as soon as that plant puts out a root system, it colonizes on the roots. When it colonizes on the roots, then it utilizes that byproduct from the plant. So it takes no energy away from the plant, which I think is critical in a lot of cases. So it takes no energy away from the plant, utilizes that byproduct to basically increase acids in the soil. Beneficial acids like indo-butyric acid, cytokine, gib acid, all these acids we hear about that we apply synthetically with other products in furrow. There's been a lot of products in that space. Winfield had a product for years called Ascend. that was around. I mean, it's been around for 20 plus years.
Yep.
And a lot of acres, and there was a lot of seed that's been overtreated with that product, and people have seen the value. We know getting that plant to germinate and establish a root system as early as possible is critical. And so Meristem does that, but it also, I think the most important thing it does is since it colonizes on the roots, which means it stays living on that root system as long as the plant is living, it continues to that process throughout the season. So there's no stop button. There's no, okay, the synthetic PGR ran out, it's over. Its half-life is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. This goes throughout the whole season. And so where that plays a critical role is that means we can harvest for more water, more nutrients, which mitigates stress. We talk about the stresses and things that rob ourselves of yield. We can mitigate those stresses even farther into grain fill because we've got better access to water and nutrients. And I think about root hairs. How often do we have to redevelop root hairs? About every 7 days, 10 days. So really helping with that root hair redevelopment as they die off, and we redevelop those throughout the season. So that's Meristem. The other product in the corn version is what we call a biological 12-pack. We hear about products like Azobacter, Azospirillum, nitrogen fixers. There's popular commercial products in the market that have spent a lot of time marketing and around the value of nitrogen fixing. What we've done is we know there's value in that, but we haven't genetically changed anything in the biology. We just selected the right biology to perform that function in its natural environment. So we took the Azobacter and Azospirillum to help to introduce N-fixing microbes that would help fixate more nitrogen, giving us more efficient use of N, mineralize more N. And that we also then have a plethora of different bacilluses and that harvest nutrients like your phosphorus, like your potassium and other micronutrients and increase availability of those right around that root zone. And then finally the last one is called ether. And this is probably one of my favorites. And it's one of my favorites because ether was named by a farmer. And ether is an enzyme. And when we talk about the biology, what the biology is actually doing is it creates enzymes. So enzymes are the end result of most biological activity because those enzymes are what cleave off those nutrients, break those bonds, increase the availability of soluble phosphorus, increase the availability of potassium in K++ form, removing that from organic material that's in the soil. That's the enzymes actually doing that final function. Biology is the start of that. So we want to deploy that biology around the root zone so we really kick up the beneficial biology in that area and colonize on that root system. And then the reason we introduced the enzymes in the beginning, and we call it ethers, because there is a lag here, right? We got cooler soils in the beginning, we're planting earlier, we got the biology there, and then we need a little time for it to bring about this nutrient availability. So let's just call that 2 to 3 weeks. The enzymes work immediately. So go back to the old 40-20, sitting in the shed, right? I mean, we've all done that. You go in there and it's 0 degrees outside.
1066.
1066.
Yeah,
We had 1066. We were on a vegetable farm. We operated every color under the sun. The 40-20, as I call it, or the 10. I like the 1066. Yeah. We had those too. When your tank could have been full of fuel, right? Just like our soils, it's full of nutrients. So the tank could have been full of fuel. But when you turn that key, it just wouldn't turn over. Just, right? Try to turn over. So you take the ether, use the ether, and what'd that do? That created a bridge. It gave it available fuel to run off of to grab a hold of the fuel that's in the tank. It's what we're doing here. We're deploying these enzymes in a way to get plant available phosphorus immediately to that crop, especially in conjunction with the zinc that's in the base of that pail. We influence phosphorus and zinc uptake immediately, which is critical on all crops. And we do that and bridge the gap between that and the rest of the nutrients coming available, and when that plant can harvest the rest of those nutrients themselves. When we first introduced this product, we were with a group of farmers. And we were trying to explain how the technology works, being all technical like we do, right? We get all technical and farmer says, sounds like ether to me. And we loved it so much we searched and we were able to trademark it and use it. So it is a farmer name technology.
No, that's very, very cool. There's one more component that probably isn't on the slide or that you haven't talked about yet. It's a new thing for this year for somebody that, this is all brand new to a lot of people, us included, but carbon. You're also putting carbon in one of these capsules.
We are putting carbon in with the ether. What we found was the ether by itself works excellent. We're getting that increased phosphorus solubility, but no different than when some companies develop hybrids, depending on where they are. If they're more of a large, where they've got to cover a huge footprint, they try to utilize things that'll work in all geographies, right? The enzyme was working excellent, and what we found was when we introduced carbon it helps with early vigor. It helps increase food sources for biology. And so it helps with water holding capacity around seed. So you get into your more stress environments, your stressier soils, your maybe droughtier soils, tighter soils. We found that the introduction of the carbon actually influenced it positively. Now maybe some real high OM soils, maybe it doesn't provide as much, but we got the ether in already, so we know we're providing value even in those high organic matter soils. So the carbon gave us the ability to stretch our footprint and get more consistent performance across all soil types, especially where we've got our tighter soils and our lower organic matter soils.
So Peter, farmers are going to be tight for money this year. What kind of results can they expect with this product? What have you seen with this product?
So with the corn version, Joe, you're right. We're always looking for solutions, right? We're trying to either produce our way through the problem, through those problems, but we also got to watch our costs, and things have to work. And so we're finding I'd say anywhere on this version, 7 to I'll call it 12 bushel on corn. Of course, there's always those areas out there. You've got your wins and your losses. Nothing wins 100% of the time, I say, but we're seeing a 80-85% win rate, and I would say we're pretty happy when we find ourselves between 7 and 12. Always like to see higher, but that's where we're consistently wanting to land. And on our soybean version, let's touch on the soybeans. I know we didn't talk about all the components in it yet, but on that note, Joe, on the soybean, we're actually seeing we've got some coming out this year already. And we've had reports of 12 to 15. So we're real excited about what we're seeing in the soybean version. Again, they're not going to be 100%, but our win rate on soybeans in the past couple of years has actually been north of about 88%. And so between both corn and soybeans, we're real confident in 80+% win rate and return ROI back to the farmer.
From this year, with us doing our trials on it, I could see that from the early vigor when we're looking at the question that I get asked is, the how, how does this work? You've explained the mechanism, but from a plant standpoint, when we talk about setting up that plant for success, especially on corn, this year we were wet, cold, really extended amount of times. We were able to keep that plant moving forward, didn't have as much stress. So when we entered that, that V5 to V6 time frame, there's a lot of corn out there that struggled with phosphorus, big time, especially when we get into high residue, the cover crop situations. A lot of phosphorus deficiency early, and those corn, if we didn't have that stress, it just makes me kind of wonder what if we take it even further. And as we have this and it makes it available, as we sit the rows around, we can't add any more once we've gone past that stage. So we're setting that plan up through this utility here, right from the beginning, and making sure that we're taking care of that. So when you talk about yield, that's kind of how I explained it to guys, is the how is that we're setting up that plant when it's determining that rows around, that it's not having a bad day from even emergence to determining the rows around.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's I love how you mentioned the how, or sometimes people say the why, right? Why should I do this? Everybody should know. Joe, you mentioned lower commodities. Everybody should know why they're writing a check, and I think you explained that perfectly. Is I would say, if you don't get off to the best start, you can't ever finish as strong as you could have. Right? If I'm not a very good runner, I don't like to run. You run around a track a few times, and you'll find that I'm not going to finish first. So I have to start out with at least the best opportunity possible to win. But the whole idea there is, if we start out, if we're not evenly emerged, we're already behind the 8 ball. And so most growers sit down and they make a crop plan. And in that crop plan, we've already probably decided in some cases if we're going to put on even as far out as fungicide or something during a reproductive pass. If we're going to spend those dollars, we want to make sure that we're setting that plan up for the most success. to take advantage of that spend. Because as you mentioned, we're setting rows around, we're determining length, we're doing all these things. So what are we doing at those reproductive passes with fungicide and these components? They work, but they're there to maintain the yield potential that's been created. This is when we can influence the plant to create the most opportunity, especially in corn. Precision has, if you've been in their offices, they've got a nice kind of a book rack that shows if you're off emergence even on day one, it's 10% reduction. This is the day one difference between, we did run a trial with them where day one treated, day two, day three, day four, and the more we get emerged on day one, the best we're set up for success. And it's hard, you can't ever make up for that. I think it's 10% in their data on day one. I think it moves to close to I think it's 30 or 50. Don't quote me, but it's they have like I say, they have it in there. But I look at that day one, and I think I don't want to lose that 10% potential. And so in this case where we did the study, it was an 18 bushel difference in a higher yield environment. But that exists across all yield environments, right? If we don't get off to the best start, we can't finish as strong as we possibly could.
While we're still looking at a corn lid, let's talk about what brought you guys to us from the biocontrol perspective.
Yeah, so the biocontrol perspective, we're pretty excited about, because biofertility is something we were able to do, we believe, better than anyone, because we know. So one thing that I like to mention is talc graphite. Most fluency agents are very hard on biologicals as well. And so there are products out there that, the bios are in with the talc graphite, or they're in with whatever the fluency agent is. And I would just put a word of caution on some of that, because a lot of those, the CFU count, as you mentioned earlier, Joe, they're reduced or maybe not even alive. So that's how we started this, was how do we best deliver those technologies that are biofertility to the seed furrow as a yield enhancement. Now as we get into where our relationship started was, with that, we're seeing more and more companies come to the table with technology in what we call the biocontrol, biosuppression space, and that is going to grow tremendously. I feel like it's the late '90s in the seed business, right, where every year there was a new advancement in seed, and that's coming to us in the biological market. So we have a product called GuardX. It is a corn rootworm microbe. And what it does is that plant emits a signal that corn larva is attracted to. I was in a grower meeting, so I can't complete credit for it, but we all like bacon, I assume. Everybody likes bacon. They say that he goes, well, that signal that plant emits, that corn larva is pretty attracted to it. He goes, I've got kids that they just won't wake up on time on Sunday. He goes, so all I got to do is just make bacon, and they all come flurrying out of their bedroom right down to the kitchen, and it's amazing how that works. Well, that's the way the corn larva is with the corn plant. There's that signal emitted that corn larva is attracted to, because it doesn't have the ability to see, right? So it's attracted to, and it wants to go to that root system and chew on it. If we got below ground traits, okay, it still takes that bite. And it takes that bite and ingests that protein and dies. I think the best control, I think of like weed control. Somebody told me the best weed control, no weed at all. The best corn rootworm control, no bite at all. Because that bite is still stress. And in this case, where it was PowerCore, a lot of these hybrids, not being a seed specialist myself, but a lot of these hybrids, I know they have more yield potential, where maybe we don't have some of those below ground traits. So this was an avenue that we could deliver to the market that gave us that corn rootworm suppression that we're looking for, that keeps that corn larva from ever finding that root, which means it can never finish its life cycle and it dies. It is an EPA registered product, so that way we can make the claims that this is what it does. It's proven to work, and we've got it commercially out on a lot of acres this year for its first looks, but it's been out in testing for many years before this. We soft launched it this year, and we're going big launch going into this crop year. Real excited about what we're seeing. And it is a safe product. So some people think corn rootworm and is it an insecticide?
Go straight to ask.
What happens if a little bit of this gets on me? This is, like I say, we're not killing anything with this. We're interrupting the signal through a natural process that the plant puts off, and keeping the corn rootworm from ever finding the roots.
So that would be another button that would be on that box, and if you decide you want that option.
That's correct. That would be a 4-button pail in this case, if you wanted that option.
We have it out in testing. We have a handful, probably 3 or 4 individual customers, Dad and my farm included in that, with insecticide, without insecticide, and we'll be sharing those yield results as we get them in what I would call probably pretty moderate to high corn rootworm pressures, because what we are, with this being in its infancy, you guys have done a lot of testing. Where I picture that product is a 2-year corn on corn switch to soybean style rotation, or in continuous corn where we know we have moderate to lower populations. If you have a disaster out there, I always suggest to farmers go buy your Smart Stacks Pros. That's the best corn rootworm trait on the market right now. Just, you have to go that direction. But in place of insecticide potentially on Double Pro, Power Core style products, we believe that the Gardex is a very, very solid contender.
Well, you mentioned cost. We were talking earlier about price of corn. This technology in that case really excites me, because you touched on insecticide traits. 100% agree. If you're in high pressure environments, this makes really good trait support. And where you're using traits, but you're also backing up with insecticide. When you get north, you get into northern Iowa and northern Illinois and those parts, they're fully traded. They've got a $25 insecticide supporting it, and they're still seeing that break. We are very confident in that particular case to be able to either, one, maybe even be a third mode of action in some environments. But most environments, it's going to displace a cost. Displace insecticide, which means now that 4th button that appears here, if we displace that insecticide, we can confidently take that insecticide out of that application. We've basically paid for the whole pail, and now provided all these yield benefits, the 7 to 12 and things that we visited about, those hopefully just become gravy. That's extra dollars back into the farmer's pocket that they've made. But what we've done is we've substituted the cost out to be able to take advantage of those opportunities through the reduction or the no use of insecticide, and or in some cases where they can select a trait package for yield by not having to maybe use that below ground trait in those moderate pressures, and utilize this and go for yield on the right trait package.
Perfect. Well, we have the corn bucket. I think we could set this one off to the side for now. But let's chit chat a little bit about what's in the soybean pail, because one of the reasons that I guess, Joe, why don't you hit on why we don't have Brady rhizobia inoculant on our seed treatment, and one of the exciting things?
Well, it's the number one reason is it's the most wimpy bacteria out there when it comes to trying to stay alive. In other words, it's really affected by its environment, and if you put it on the seed, basically there's a good chance that it won't be alive when you get to the field.
Unless you're treating right at
the planter.
Yep, you're treating a day or two ahead of the planter.
Everything with biologicals. I mean, we've talked to a lot of smart people, and they all say if you want biologicals to work, they've got to be alive. And every time we talk to different companies, they're either commingling, like you say, or mixing them together, doing all this stuff for convenience, but that doesn't make them work. And in this case, the box offers the convenience, but yet keeps them all separate. And you will actually get more bang for the buck. In other words, you're getting more live bacteria on your seed, which then is an enhancement. So for us, it was all about viability, and that's why we got excited about Meristem, because they could provide our customers with the most viable biologicals at the planter, plus they combined it with a process that they're already doing, and that's adding the planter lubricant material. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, so that rolls into what's in the soybean pail.
So in the soybean pail, a little bit of repeat of the corn in the base, as we mentioned. We've got the talc graphite, we've got the iron, manganese, and the zinc. And again, everything in the soybean pail is adjusted to more a 40, 45 acre type of application because of a pro box quantity. So this treats a box of beans, or again, 1 scoop, 1 unit. So that's why there is less zinc in it, but it's actually the same amount of zinc on a per acre basis when you look at the breakdown. So same base as the corn. In the lid, we've got as Joe mentioned, the Brady Rhizobium inoculant, which works excellent. I'm personally a fan of inoculant on all soybeans. I know sometimes we try to recommend, hey, you've been multiple years corn or wherever the case may be, but I can't find a situation where inoculant hasn't benefited soybeans. Well, we're trying to nodulate as many as possible, healthy nodules, fixate as much nitrogen as possible. I feel like sometimes the lack of that becomes a yield problem later in the season because we don't fix enough N to really carry that plant out through those later R stages where that plant quits fixing N, and we only have to work with what we have. So the more that we can do early, establish those nodules, the better off we are, and we're definitely showing that with this delivery mechanism with the Brady Rhizobium. And then one of the other called buttons or capsules is the Meristem. It's the soybean version. So the Meristem has basically a legume version and a grass version, right? Monocot, dicot version. It is specific to that. If you put it on the wrong one, nothing bad's going to happen. And corn's not going to, nothing bad's going to happen to the crop. It's just less effective. It'll still be effective. It's just more the 95% rule versus a 90% rule. So the Meristem that's in here functions the same way as on the corn. Otherwise, it's there to provide larger root systems. It colonizes on the plant's root system, so it's there season long. I think with soybeans, huge benefit in late season stresses where we're seeing less flowers, loss, seeing more pod retention, that kind of thing. We're harvesting for more water, more nutrients. As we get into one of the other capsules, again, the biofertility. Just like we talked about in the corn, we talked about the 12-pack. This has a little more than that, but this is a combination of actually a few different nitrogen fixers, and that's because we want to enhance that nodulation process by having those nitrogen fixers so that we can continue to drive as much nitrogen fixation as possible. That will not make the plant lazy. I've had people ask me that. Well, you're putting on nitrogen fixers, is it going to keep it from nodulating? No, not at all. They actually work together hand in hand because we're fixating mineralized nitrogen, organic nitrogen out of the soil, and we're actually capturing more of that for the plant to use later in season. And then again, the other bacilluses to help harvest more nutrients, potassium, phosphorus, and the other. And the final one I want to point out though particularly is trichoderma, and I can't pronounce that last word, harzium or something like that. Anyway, it has been found to be very beneficial in soybeans. I actually was talking to, there's these companies that do the DNA testing now of the soil. They say that there's areas, and there's a lot of them. A guy told me at a field day over 80% of the soils that they're testing come back lacking that strain, that specific strain. He came up to me and said, "You have that strain in your capsule," and he said that strain lacks in most soils, and we have seen areas where just that strain will deliver a 15 bushel increase where we add that. So I didn't know that was completely independent. I didn't know anything about that. I'm glad it's in there. Give credit to credit where credit's due. Our director of product research knows his biologicals. Has spent his whole career in biology, so he built that consortium, and so hats off to him. It takes a lot of good people to build a good product. But then finally, the ether technology that we talked about, the enzymes. And again, in soybeans, I was at a field day with a group that was walking through the importance of early establishment in soybeans. Some people think, soybeans are in some markets, soybeans are the rotation crop, right? But we've learned how to raise some good soybeans, and right now, economically, I like how soybeans look on my farm. I like the math of the soybean acres on our farm. And so we're really driving for yield on soybeans. And that early influence of phosphorus in the first 30 days is critical in soybeans. It takes up its highest demand for how small that root system is as high as it will ever be in the season in that first 30 days based on the size of that root system. So the combination of that zinc in the base of that pail and that enzyme to increase soluble phosphorus is a winning combination early on in soybeans.
So we've had several thousand acres of both products out, so we feel pretty confident. We're getting a little bit of data starting to come back in. We're not ready to talk about it yet, but it looks pretty good.
Well, yeah. If you want to talk about, and it's a Guard-X product that you're alluding to there, and what did you say, 7 to 12?
Yeah.
It's higher than that. That's what we're getting back on replication.
I won't ever be upset because I was wrong on the 7 to 12 if it's higher than that.
Yeah. So
Another thing that I think is pretty cool with you guys from a philosophy standpoint, when we talk about our soybean seed treatment, we work with independents, and we're up to 10 different people or companies that are
in rising, yes.
Yeah. So you guys are also in that kind of that same mindset. You're independent. That as when we first started talking, this didn't look exactly the same as what it did when we first started talking. You guys are out there looking for new developments, and you have strategic partners. But there's also, if a new opportunity comes up, you're not in a position to where you can't move very quickly and enhance that product as we move forward in the future.
No, that's 100%.
And you're not basic in anything.
That's correct. We are, when you look at this pail, we kind of joke around and say, you see this pail, you might see it out on farms. One thing that we would tell producers and dealers alike is it's kind of like a Pro Box. If you see a Pro Box, that Pro Box is a delivery mechanism for seed. Doesn't mean all the seed in it's the same, right? So so two parts of our business is we feel like we've perfected a way to deliver biology at the seed and now biocontrols. But we are not basic in any of those components besides what's in the base of the pail, and then also making the pail. So we're basic in the construction of the pail. All of it's made, really, the construction of the pail is right here, not very far. A lot of it gets done in Council Bluffs, Iowa. So we've invested quite a bit there and continue to look to invest more in automation and to be the best at being able to move quickly to include new technologies as they come on board. But to your point, Lynn, we want to innovate. Our founder, Mitch Evanston, is our founder. He spent a lot of time with Winfield in his career. He's seen everything in the crop protection, seed business, and call it crop additive business that you could see. And one thing that he always says is innovation will follow market access. So if you've got market access and innovation's out there, it's gonna come a calling. And what we want to be attracted to at Meristem is innovation. So there's a lot of really good R&D companies out here. There's a lot of exciting technology available, and we want them to see Meristem as a great path to market. So that way they want to be in that pail, they want to get into those biocapsules so we can best deliver their technology. So yeah, we are not married. We have great partners. We really enjoy our partnerships with the vendors we have. We're continuing to broaden that portfolio, find new solutions. Doesn't mean that we're kicking one out. We're finding that they work well together in conjunction, so that's why we're getting more capsules into a pail. And in some cases, we're finding that we're able to substitute maybe a synthetic chemistry. We've got the corn rootworm. We're looking at bionematicides. We're looking at bioinsecticides. We're looking at biofungicides that can be used later, even later in the season, through a different delivery mechanism through liquid. So we're really expanding this, and we're looking to technology providers to look to Meristem as a way to get to market.
We hit on, I guess we're kind of jumping back and forth there, but we talked about the 7 to 12 as kind of your P&O graph on the corn side. What were you seeing on the soybean side?
So the soybean side, we've seen this year. So we've already got some, I'll call it anecdotal results, right? I was at a meeting talking about the soybean pail, and a guy says, "Well, actually, I tried one of those pails last year. One of my customers did, and he says he just sent me a result this morning." And I'll be honest, there's a slight panic there, sitting in front of a room with 50 people, where he was getting ready to say the result out loud, but he said it made just touch over 15 bushel. And at that point, I told him he could have the floor and he could speak all he wanted, because nothing I was going to say could ever outdo the performance of the product. So 15 there. I know we had another one come in around 17. We've had a 12. We've had a 6. But very strong response in soybeans. We actually had some results. We worked with some universities. Yeah, we've gotten into some university stuff, and last year we did get some stuff coming out of Iowa that was 10.6. We're back in there again this year with some testing. So real excited about those partnerships. But again, the best tests are the ones done out in the field with the farmer.
Yeah, the ROI that you guys are talking about with these numbers are just, it makes a very hard decision pretty easy when you're looking at an ROI in the range of potentially $80 to $90 an acre, depending on how high that yield potential is.
You're exactly correct. So, we covered a lot, and this is going to be like one of those episodes or one of those things that I would have to go back and listen to a couple different times if it was my first time talking about it. But what I kind of wanted to do is finish us off today and talk about just a glance at what the program approach looks like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have Alex throw up a slide of basically a corn program and a soybean program. So Merschman dealers will have the ability to sell all Meristem products. It's not just the hopper throttle, but the hopper throttle is the one that ties the most closely to the seed that we sell, because that's what's going in the planter. The hopper throttle is going to go in at the same time as what the seed's going into the planter. I think it's an awesome first step. It might actually be closer to the second or third step when you look at the full program approach. But be looking forward to more Cup of Joe episodes with Peter or maybe some of your counterparts on some of these different programs. So I have the corn one pulled up right there. We have different foliar products, so foliar fertilizer products. We have different growth regulator products that would go in during a first post pass, a second like a fungicide timing pass, and then if you're really hitting it hard, you can get even later on in season than your fungicide pass. We have different products for earlier on in the season, potentially in the fall, or like starter enhancements on the corn side. Same thing can be said about the soybean side. So there's more products. There's nitrogen stabilizers. There's a whole bunch of different things that come out of this portfolio. But we wanted a good place to start, and I think we started at a good place. So
yeah, this to discuss those slides that you mentioned, hopper throttle is the foundation, right? It all starts at the seed. And one comment I had a farmer tell me years ago, I'll never forget, he was picking corn and just kind of had all these things happening outside the window. He had, fertility being applied, and lime going on, maybe a little bit of tillage, and it was all happening. And it's kind of an area that they farmed quite a bit. There's a whole section. And I said to him, well, you got a lot going on right on your own farms. He says, planting season starts today. So as we're out here harvesting, be thinking about, while we're thinking about hopefully how good that harvest is and how well things are going, the things we do next influence next year's crop. And so, as you mentioned, we look at the whole planting cycle as a system. And we've got products like the Excavator AMS that can go out in the fall, help start to really mineralize that nutrition, get us set up for next year, or put it on in the spring. But the hopper throttle, it is the base foundation then to get that plant off to a good start. And then everything else we do throughout the rest of the season is to continue to mitigate stress and take advantage of of what that genetic potential really is in that crop. Because what we have found on that slide, it mentions 25% of yield can still be impacted in season. So if we establish that plant for its most success, there's actually more that we can do with it in season. So we start off well, it gives us the opportunity to really influence it for the most opportunity.
I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
Lynn, do you have any closing thoughts? Well,
Get your order in today.
Well, yeah, that's one thing I did want to mention. So these products are going to follow the same cash discount as whatever your dealer would potentially be offering from their cash discount perspective. Yeah. So if that's in October, or if that's a January, or if that's whatever it is, it'll match whatever their dealer's discount schedule.
Ship it with the seed and make it a very easy pickup. When you pick up your seed, you can pick up your products. If you ordered it, so it's becoming, like you said, a system approach.
So we're gonna have to hold you on here through the corny joke. We can't let you leave early. So
I can't wait. I've been looking forward to it the whole time.
Well, this one here is PG-13. It's really not a joke. It's really a story. Okay, and it's tied to a farmer. Okay, and if you've ever met elderly farmers, they're usually pretty sharp people, you know what I'm saying? They've been around a little bit and they kind of know their stuff, so I'm going to set it up that way. An elderly man who owned a large farm for several years, and he had a large pond on the far end of his property. It was properly shaped for swimming, so he fixed it up nice with picnic tables, horseshoe courts, and some apple and peach trees. One evening, the old farmer decided to go down to the pond since he hadn't been there for a while. He grabbed a big white bucket to bring back some fresh fruit. And it was a long walk in a remote area. As he neared the pond, he heard voices shouting and laughing with glee. He came closer and he saw it was several young women skinny dipping in his pond. He made the women aware of his presence, and then they all went to the deep end. One of the women shouted to him, "We're not coming out until you leave." The old man frowned. "I didn't come down here to watch you ladies swim naked or make you get out of the pond naked." Holding up the bucket, he said, "I'm here to feed the crocodile." Some old men still can think fast. There you go.
That's a good one.
Ties in with your bucket, doesn't it?
It does. It does tie in very well.
Anyhow, thanks for watching today. Thanks, Peter, for coming in. We hope all our customers out there are getting ready for harvest or have started harvest. We hope your harvest is bountiful. Please be safe and hope your family's healthy. We'll see you next week.